I never thought I'd find myself sharing this story, but I feel like I need to get it off my chest. It's been a tumultuous journey, and I hope others can learn from our mistakes. My husband, Jake, and I had been married for 8 years when everything spiraled out of control. At first, our marriage was solid. We had our ups and downs, like any couple, but we genuinely loved each other. We built a life together, bought a house, and had 2 beautiful kids. But over time, Jake started to change. He became distant, and it felt like there was a growing gap between us. One day, out of the blue, Jake approached me with an idea that turned my world upside down. He wanted to explore an open marriage. At first, I thought he was joking. We had always been monogamous, and the very notion felt foreign to me. But he was serious, and after several conversations filled with his enthusiasm for the idea, I felt pressured to agree. I didn't want to lose him or feel like a failure as a wife. Initially, we set some ground rules. We agreed to communicate openly about our feelings and experiences. It felt like we were trying to be progressive and modern, but deep down, I was terrified. As time passed, things took a dark turn. Jake started seeing someone seriously, while I struggled to find anyone I felt comfortable with. It felt like I was watching him live his best life while I was left behind. The jealousy was suffocating, and every time he came home with stories about his new relationship, it chipped away at my heart. As the months went on, our communication began to break down. Jake was often preoccupied, and I felt increasingly alone. Arguments became more frequent, often about things that seemed trivial but were rooted in deeper issues. Our emotional connection deteriorated, and the intimacy we once shared vanished. Things reached a breaking point one night when I found out that Jake had been hiding details about his relationship. I stumbled upon a message on his phone from his girlfriend that revealed he was planning a weekend getaway with her. My heart sank. This was the man I had committed my life to, and he was living a double life. When I confronted him, he became defensive. He argued that I should be happy for him and that this was part of the arrangement we agreed on. That moment shattered me. It was like a betrayal on top of betrayal, and I felt completely trapped in this situation. As time passed, our kids began to notice the tension between us. Family dinners were filled with silence, and our once joyful home felt heavy with unspoken words. They sensed our disconnect and even began to ask if everything was okay. The guilt of dragging them into our mess weighed heavily on me. Eventually, I hit a breaking point. I realized I couldn't continue living like this, constantly comparing myself to someone else and feeling inadequate. I reached out to a therapist for help, trying to navigate this new reality. But Jake was resistant to the idea of therapy, insisting that our marriage was fine and that I was overreacting. One fateful evening, after yet another heated argument, I made the decision to stand my ground. I told Jake that I couldn't do this anymore and needed to focus on our family. His response was devastating. He accused me of trying to control him and wanting to return to a boring life. That night, everything fell apart. We both said things we didn't mean, and in the heat of the moment, we reached a point of no return. Our children were in bed, but I felt like I was losing everything. The dreams we built together were crashing down around us. Eventually, we found ourselves sitting in front of a marriage counselor, but it felt too little, too late. The damage was done, and the emotional scars ran deep. After weeks of therapy, we both knew we were at a crossroads. It was painful to admit, but it felt like we were no longer partners but rather 2 people sharing the same space. In the end, we decided to separate. The decision was heart-wrenching, but we knew we couldn't continue living a lie. It devastated our kids, and the fallout from our choices affected every aspect of our lives. I felt like I had failed as a wife and mother, and the guilt haunted me daily. Now, several months later, I'm slowly trying to rebuild my life. It's a long and arduous process, filled with ups and downs. I'm focused on being there for my kids and helping them navigate this new reality. But the scars from our marriage will always be there, a constant reminder of how a well-intentioned idea can lead to ruin. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's the importance of open communication and understanding in a relationship. Once trust is broken, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. I hope sharing my story can help others think twice before jumping into something they're unsure about.